Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. It is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some poetry of interest. And since I'm doing this period of Pride, I'm highlighting poets who are in the LGBTQA community. And today's poem is all about sort of remembrance of a person who has passed. I am referring to Lament by Édouard Roditi. For those who don't know, Édouard Roditi is a French-American writer who lived in the 1900s, I believe 1910 to 1992. He mostly wrote poetry, but he also wrote translations of French surrealist works, and he also wrote essays on the LGBT lifestyle, on being gay, as he was a gay man, which is that connection to this period of Pride. What's interesting is that he said that he didn't really like dating men who were out of the closet. He much rather preferred dating bisexual men or men who were maybe in relationships already or something like that, which just seems weird. Maybe a little bit of internalized homophobia or something like that. But a very interesting writer. He also served as a translator in the Nuremberg trials. At least that's what it says online. I don't know how true that is, but that would be interesting if it were true. And so, without further ado, let's talk about his poem Lament. I will read it and do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Lament. Lorca, who drank and drugged and loved, whitewashing night, darkening day, with sleep-closed lids, is dead, is dead. Marble-topped tables in Madrid, Paris, and Buenos Aires bear the stains of drink that once he spilled. His blood has left no stain. The days that he despised have washed away the clues that still accused his wounds. Now he is drowned in night and death, who loved the night and nightly teased the bulls of death, spending his speech and lifeblood in the star-watched ring of darkness where we met. His voice speaks in the night and that used his lips to speak to men and me in death that he knew well before he died. I think of war much as I think of death. Remember Lorca when I dream of war and death. What unknown eye, not knowing me, prepares to aim at empty space and shoot and shoot. What son of day and light shall see in me dark death, and hating death send me to drink with Lorca beyond day. And so that was Lament by Édouard Roditi. In terms of analysis, there is a fair bit we're talking about here. In terms of narrative for this poem, I think it's easy to see what's going on. An unnamed narrator is lamenting their friend, or possibly something more, a person named Lorca, who died and was known as a bit of a barfly, the narrator is saying that they won't be remembered, but they also will be remembered, and then they also wonder if death will come for them and bring them to drink maybe with Lorca down the road. So there's quite a bit we're talking about in this poem, beyond the narrative. And one of those things is obviously the use of memory of remembering somebody. Early in the poem, they say, Paris and Buenos Aires bear the stains of drink that once he spilled. And then he goes on to say, his blood has left no stain. The days that he despised have washed away the clues that still accused his wounds. And you kind of get like two different sort of interpretations there, or at least like a conflicted meaning, I want to say, because he says like these bars bear the stains of drinks he spilled, indicating that he'll be remembered in some way. But in the next verse, he says like his blood has left no stain. The days that he despised have washed away. So like he's going to be remembered or he won't be remembered. It seems like there's a conflicting sort of statements there. But it does seem like ultimately Lorca will be remembered by the narrator. And you see that later in the poem when he says, who loved the night and nightly teased the bulls of death, spending his speech and lifeblood in the star-watched ring of darkness where we met. His voice speaks in the night that used his lips to speak to men and me. And so you see that clearly Lorca meant something to the narrator here. Now, we could say, that this might have been a relationship, a gay relationship, because Lorca certainly sounds like a man's name. Could possibly be a woman's name. Well, he does use like the masculine pronoun there. So it could have been a gay relationship, but the narrator's gender is not specified. So it could have very well been, heterosexual. But given that the author of this is a gay man, we can possibly see this as an example of a gay relationship in a poem. And I do think ultimately that Lorca will be remembered, even though you get that conflicting statement that, the days have washed away and Lorca will leave, like there will be no more stain on his blood. So kind of conflicting there. And then another interesting aspect of this poem is the structure, which ultimately leads to the end of the poem. So it is, in terms of structure, in terms of verse meter length, I would say, you have this entire poem is in what I would maybe call octometer, like pentameter, but eight syllables in each line. You see that Lorca, who drank and drugged and loved, whitewashing night, darkening day, with sleep, closed lids, is dead, is dead. It makes the poem flow really well. But it should just be noted that like almost every single line, it has a meter of 8 syllables per line. That's significant because, we have to ask, where does that not meet the case? Because that's often where the poet wants us to look. And we see that at the very end of the poem. It's at an empty space and shoot, what sun of day and light shall see, in me dark death and hating death, send me to drink with Lorca beyond day. I think that last line there is 10 syllables. So entire poem, 8 syllables per line, and then the last line, 10 syllables. And why is that significant? It's because it's a question that the narrator is asking, like what son of day and light shall see, in me dark death and hating death, send me to drink with Lorca beyond day. I think it's the narrator asking, like, will death or someone else come and kill me so that I can drink with Lorca? Are they suggesting that they want to die, or are they just asking, like, inevitably I will die, so when will I get to be with Lorca again? And it kind of stands out as like most of this poem is about remembering someone, but this last line is specifically about them and asking when their time will come. It's a very interesting aspect of the poem. It also makes it appear a bit darker because, it's somewhat positive about Lorca, and then suddenly you get to this point where the narrator is asking when they'll die, and you have to wonder, like, do they want to die? Was their relationship to the point where they were so close and now they can't imagine life without Lorca? I think that's a very important question to ask. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Lament by Édouard Roditi. Pretty solid poem from a pretty good poet. I've read some other poems from him recently, and this one stood out, but the other ones were pretty good too. So I highly recommend that you go check those out. I'll put a link to this poem in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would love to have a chat about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poet or this poem if they don't already know. Also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about poetry, books, movies, TV, that kind of stuff. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and lamenting travels. Farewell.